Hey Islam Debate, thanks for your video response. Usually here on YouTube, I just try to put up these questions or, these things that I'm confused about. And when I get the video responses and the emails, I read them, I absorb the information, I thank the people that responded, and then I move on. However, in the case of your video, I really disagreed. Not only, not just the fact that I didn't really feel I got any answers from you, uh, it's also the fact that you made some statements that I really think were way off the mark, and I think that you should try to investigate a little bit more about, because I think you're way off, and so give you a quick response. And I also want you to realize that if I made a video making the kinds of statements about Muslims or Islam that you made about atheists, the kind of generalizations and stereotypes, I would probably be called an Islamophobe and a racist. So think about that, because you made a few statements on there that that were hateful against or prejudiced or biased against atheists or people that were not Muslim. So let me just get right into it. You say, well, if there is no God and no absolute morality, then that would give us permission to do anything, and I would go out and rape and murder. I think I'm not the first to state this, that that's not morality. I mean, who's the more moral person? The one that does the right thing because it's the right thing to do and doesn't kill because understands that other people suffer and that death is final, blah blah blah, or the person that just doesn't do it because they're afraid of being punished. I think that the answer is pretty clear there. So I think your point there has no validity. Then you go ahead and you make your first blanket statement: atheistic societies are immoral. And I just want to read you something from Sam Harris's letter to a Christian nation. I know you're not a Christian, but something that you might want to ponder on and maybe investigate for yourself. Norway, Iceland, Australia, Canada, Sweden, Switzerland, Belgium, Japan, the Netherlands, Denmark, and the United Kingdom are among the least religious societies on earth. According to the United Nations Human Development Report, they are also the healthiest, as indicated by life expectancy, adult literacy, per capita income, educational attainment, gender equality, homicide rate, and infant mortality. Insofar as there is a crime problem in Western Europe, it is largely the product of immigration. 70% of the inmates of France's jails, for instance, are Muslim. I'm not going to say anything about it. Just think it over and maybe do some research of your own. You say that, if you believed in natural selection, then anything goes, because, it's like, just survival of the fittest, I guess, which is, this is, again, it's not a new point that you're raising. I don't want to go into it. And again, evolution by natural selection is not a moral philosophy. It is just a way of explaining the diversity of life. You see, and I think that's the big difference between believers like you and non-believers. The point that you make that that if you believe in natural selection, anything goes. But if you believe that God created everything, then you wouldn't want to hurt or damage God's creatures. Well, even if God didn't create anything, as a moral human being, you should understand that people suffer and that other people, you should have empathy, and you should understand that people, just as you wouldn't want to be raped and murdered, or you wouldn't want any of your family members or loved ones to be raped and murdered, you shouldn't be doing it either. I don't rape and I don't murder because I understand pain and suffering, and I understand that I wouldn't want that to be inflicted on me, and I feel empathy and I understand my fellow human being, and it's really just not a hard decision for me to make. If you need somebody to tell you that God created everything just so that you don't go out and rape and murder, well, then again, your style of morality just doesn't fit with my ideas. Then you make another blanket statement. As a general rule, atheists are immoral. I'm guessing you don't know enough atheists to actually make that statement. Again, if I sat here and I said, as a general rule, Muslims are terrorists, I think you would take offense to that. So maybe you should try to think about the kinds of statements that you make. Then you say something about, look at sociology classes. In sociology classes, which are generally atheistic, which is also news to me because I went to a Jesuit school and I had sociology classes and I never had an atheistic teacher. They say that prostitution and homosexuality, that it's all good and that it's all fine. Well, quick point here. I don't think it's about that. I think that sociology tries to explain the realities of human condition in the world. And just because you say that homosexuality is immoral, that's not going to make it go away. It's about understanding that homosexuality is a reality of human condition, that it's just the way it is. And you can go again into scientific journals and you can read about the research that's being done, and a lot of it lately, that points to the fact that sexual preference is not a choice, or is as much of a choice as, other biologically determined tendencies that we have. And we can see, even from physical traits, that homosexuality is very well rooted in our genetic qualities. And of course, there's homosexuality in nature. So there's animals, I think I saw a story about a couple of gay flamingos. Ooh, pink flamingos, great stereotype. But again, I don't think it's about that at all. It's about accepting reality. Then getting into the meat of the argument, you equate slavery with POWs. I really wouldn't say that it's the same thing, but maybe it's a whole another debate about what's justifiable in war. In any case, my whole point about slavery was not what the rules for slavery are, or if Muhammad at some point said, use your money to try and free the slaves. The whole point is, why was there slavery in the first place? Why doesn't God go out of his way to condemn slavery, given that we know that it's one of the easiest moral decisions that we make nowadays? Now, I generally try to steer clear from this, but since you quoted a couple of surahs from the Quran, I want to quote you a couple as well. In Surah 4, 4:2 and 4:3, I believe, 4:3. So it says, through the middle of the surah, marry other women of your choice, 2, 3, or 4. But if you fear that you will not be able to maintain justice between your wives, then marry only one, or any slave girl you may own. I mean, that would have been a great opportunity for Allah to say, marry only one and don't own slaves. Then this is one that I found really interesting. In Surah 5:20, it's actually 4:24, 4:25. If any of you cannot afford to marry a free believing woman, let him marry one of his own slave girls who is a believer. So, I mean, there's a double thing here. One is, it's better to marry a slave that's a believer than a non-slave that is a non-believer. But again, one of his slave girls who is a believer. Again, another opportunity to say, if you have slave girls, you should free them because slavery is immoral. You shouldn't have slaves. Surah 4:34, serve Allah and do not commit shirk with him, and be good to your parents. Be good to your kinfolks, orphans, the helpless, beautiful, near and far neighbors who keep company with you, the travelers in need, and the slaves you own. Again, why wouldn't it say, do not commit shirk and be good to your parents, to your kinfolks, blah, 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 and don't own slaves. Be good to everybody. You shouldn't be owning slaves. So I hope I made my point clear. And I mean, this is the Quran. The Bible also has this. So through all of human history, there was no way that God could intervene and make it absolutely clear that slavery is wrong before it even developed and became part of the economy or whatever. My whole point with the slavery thing was, why wasn't it condemned from the get-go in the first place, and why was it something that had to be abolished and that was defended by religious apologists as having a basis in the Bible and in other religious texts? So not again, completely disagree with with what you're saying. I think this is the last point that I'm gonna make, and it's about Aisha. Now, and I know this is a very sensitive subject with Muslims, but I'm not even gonna go into the fact, did he marry her when she was 9? Was it moral in those times? Is it immoral now? A new question arose when I heard your response for me, and you said, well, you see, Aisha's age, some hadith, some scholars place her age at 9, others place her age at 17, maybe she was 25, maybe she was 29. And I went, whoa, forget about when she married. Let's just put that aside. If you know that there's all these contradictions about these aren't small, it's not like one said she was 8 and the other said she was 9 and the other said she was 7 or 10. These are huge discrepancies. So how are we supposed to believe any of these writings? How are we supposed to take, any of what these writings say as serious facts when they can't even get the simplest fact of them all straight, the age of one single person? how are we supposed to believe any of the facts in these writings if they can't, even get that straight? So that would be an interesting question that you could answer. I'm sure you're gonna respond to this video. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.